The crystal champagne flute shattered against Isabella's shoulder before she even registered the movement. She stumbled backward, crashing into the ornate dessert display at Lumiere, Manhattan's most exclusive French restaurant. Macarons scattered like confetti as she hit the marble floor, her emerald dress tearing at the seam, her wrist twisting painfully beneath her. For 3 heartbeats, the entire restaurant fell silent. The classical piano stopped mid-note. Conversations died. Even the kitchen sounds ceased. Isabella looked up from the floor, sticky champagne soaking through her dress, and locked eyes with the man standing over her. Derek, her ex-fiancé, the man who'd abandoned her 3 years ago when she needed him most. "Stay on the ground where trash belongs," Derek sneered, his Rolex catching the chandelier light as he gestured dismissively. His eyes held nothing but contempt, no recognition of who she'd become, only memories of who she'd been. He had no idea that the broken woman he remembered, the one who'd begged him not to leave, who'd sobbed in her car with $12 in her checking account, who'd lost their baby from the stress and malnutrition he'd caused, no longer existed. He couldn't see the 6-carat diamond hidden beneath her silk glove, the penthouse in Tribeca she'd left that morning, and the unlimited black card tucked in her Hermes clutch. And Derek certainly had no clue about the man whose last name she now carried, Alexander Kane, her husband, New York's most powerful venture capitalist and the shadow king who controlled half of the city's real estate and tech startups. As Isabella's trembling fingers fumbled for her phone, already ringing with Alexander's name flashing on the screen, she watched realization slowly creep across Derek's face like dawn breaking over a nightmare. He'd just assaulted the wrong woman. In approximately 7 minutes, when Alexander's motorcade pulled up to Lumiere's entrance, Derek Morrison was about to receive an education in consequences that would obliterate everything he'd ever known. But right now, in this frozen moment, he still thought she was nothing. That was about to change forever. 12 hours earlier, Isabella stood in their walk-in closet, a space larger than her old studio apartment, selecting a dress for dinner. Despite the rows of designer gowns surrounding her like a rainbow of silk and sequins, she instinctively reached for something simple, old survival instincts from harder times. "You're doing it again," Alexander said from the doorway, already dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. At 32, he was devastatingly handsome. Dark hair with distinguished silver at the temples, piercing gray eyes that missed nothing, and a presence that commanded attention without effort. "Doing what?" Isabella turned, fastening pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother. "You're choosing the most understated piece in your collection." He crossed to her, his hands settling on her waist with familiar warmth. "You're married to one of the wealthiest men in New York. Stop dressing like you're worried about the price tag." She laughed, the sound genuine and light. "I like elegant simplicity." "I like spoiling you." He pressed his lips to her neck, his voice dropping lower. "Humor me." "You humor me by accepting me exactly as I am, me." She turned in his arms, meeting those intense gray eyes. "Besides, you fell in love with me in a $5 thrift store dress." His expression softened in that way reserved only for her. "I fell in love with you despite that dress, not because of it." Then, more seriously, "You're going to the Diamond District today for the charity gala planning?" "Just some errands in Manhattan, meeting with the event coordinator at Lumiere for the final menu tasting." Something flickered across his face. Alexander was protective to an almost obsessive degree, a trait she both cherished and occasionally found overwhelming. "Take Marcus and Victor with you." "Alexander, I don't need bodyguards for a restaurant meeting." His jaw tightened, the businessman emerging. Isabella, you know what I do. You understand the enemies that creates. You don't leave this building without security. This is non-negotiable. The steel in his voice was absolute. This was Alexander Kane, venture capital tycoon and power broker, not just her husband. She cupped his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. All right, I'll take them. Relief flooded his features. Thank you. He checked his Patek Philippe, understated but worth more than most people's cars. I have a meeting with the Silicon Valley investors. Should be done by 6. We have reservations at Per Se at 8. Where? That dangerous smile that always made her pulse race. It's a surprise, but wear the emerald dress, the one I can't stop thinking about removing. Heat rushed to her cheeks despite 2 years of marriage. You're incorrigible. Only for you. One more kiss, deep and thorough, before he left her breathless in their closet. 3 hours later, Isabella walked through Lumiere, with Marcus and Victor maintaining discreet distance behind her. The restaurant was stunning, even in afternoon light. Vaulted ceilings with crystal chandeliers, white marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. She'd just finished reviewing dessert options with the coordinator when she saw him across the dining room. Derek Morrison, her ex-fiancé, the man who'd left her homeless and pregnant 3 years ago, the man who'd stolen her savings and vanished, the father of the baby she'd lost from stress and malnutrition 2 weeks after he abandoned her. He was laughing with a woman draped in Chanel, leaning against the bar with that same cocky smile, same entitled posture, same expensive taste funded by other people's money. Isabella's hands trembled, her leather portfolio nearly slipped from her grasp. 3 years. She'd believed she'd healed from this, moved past the betrayal, but seeing him ripped open wounds she'd thought were scars. The pain crashed over her, the betrayal, the fear, the nights crying in her car, the morning she'd woken in a pool of blood, losing the baby alone in a county hospital. She should leave, turn around, walk away, but her feet wouldn't move. She was frozen on the marble floor, a deer caught in headlights. Derek glanced up, their eyes met. For a moment, nothing. Then recognition sparked in his expression, followed by shock, then something uglier. Disdain. He whispered something to the woman beside him, then started walking towards Isabella with that familiar swagger that made her skin crawl. Every instinct screamed to run, but she stood paralyzed. "Well, well," Derek drawled as he approached, voice dripping with condescension. "Isabella Martinez. Never expected to see you in a place like this. Thought you'd still be shopping at discount stores where you belong." Isabella found her voice, though it trembled with suppressed emotion. "Derek, I have nothing to say to you." "What's wrong? Still bitter?" He looked her up and down with calculated cruelty. "Though I see you've upgraded your wardrobe a bit. Found some desperate man to bankroll you. That's always been your specialty, hasn't it? Playing victim until some fool takes pity and opens his wallet." The words struck like physical blows. Marcus and Victor were moving closer, sensing danger, but Isabella held up a hand to stop them. "You left me with nothing," she said quietly, hating how her voice shook. "I lost everything because of you." Derek's laugh echoed through the restaurant, drawing attention. "Stole? Sweetheart, I freed myself from a parasite. Best decision I ever made. You were always so needy, so pathetic, expecting me to support your little fantasy of playing house, acting like I owed you something just because you threw money at me. I was pregnant with your child, and I was supposed to care?" His eyes went cold as winter. "I told you from the beginning I didn't want kids. You probably got pregnant deliberately, trying to trap me. Thank God I escaped when I did." Isabella's vision blurred with tears she refused to shed. The woman Derek had been with approached now, linking her arm through his possessively. "Is this her?" the woman asked, looking Isabella up and down with barely concealed disgust. "The ex you told me about? The one who stalked you?" "Stalked?" Isabella's voice rose, despite her efforts to stay calm. "I never—" "Don't make a scene," Derek cut her off sharply. "You're embarrassing yourself. Again." He turned to leave, dismissing her completely, as if she were nothing more than an inconvenient interruption to his afternoon. Something inside Isabella shattered. 3 years of rebuilding herself, of therapy, of learning to believe she had value again, and with just a few words, Derek had tried to reduce her back to that broken woman sobbing in her car. "You destroyed me," her voice breaking. "I lost everything because of you. Our baby died because—" Derek whirled back, his face contorted with rage. "Don't you dare try to manipulate me with that lie." "It's not a lie. I lost our baby because I was starving and homeless and—" "Shut up!" He moved toward her aggressively, his hand raised. Marcus intercepted instantly, stepping between them. His hand moved inside his jacket where Isabella knew he kept his weapon. Victor had his phone out, already calling Alexander. Derek barely registered them. "What? You hired some muscle to make yourself feel important? How much are you paying these guys to pretend you matter?" "Sir, step back," Marcus said in his clipped, professional tone. "Now." "Or what?" Derek shoved Marcus's shoulder, trying to reach Isabella. Everything happened in seconds. Marcus shifted his weight, Derek's momentum carried him forward, and Derek's hand connected with Isabella's shoulder, pushing hard. She stumbled backward into the dessert display. Crystal and porcelain shattered around her. She felt the champagne tower tip, felt the liquid drench her dress, felt her wrist twist painfully as she hit the marble floor. The restaurant went utterly silent. Isabella looked up from the floor, her elbow bleeding where it had struck a metal cart, her designer dress ruined, champagne soaking through to her skin. Derek stood over her, his face red with fury. "Stay on the ground where trash belongs, you worthless." He didn't finish the sentence. Marcus had him face down on the marble in 3 seconds flat, arm wrenched behind his back. Victor was helping Isabella up, his face pale with fear, not for himself, but for what was about to happen, because Alexander was going to lose his mind. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" he asked in English, then repeated in Spanish, knowing she sometimes reverted to her first language when stressed. "I'm fine," Isabella whispered, but she wasn't. Her hands shook, her wrist throbbed, but worse than the physical pain was the emotional wound torn open, bleeding all over her carefully reconstructed life. Restaurant security rushed over. Derek's girlfriend was screaming. Other diners had their phones out, recording everything. "Let me go," Derek shouted, struggling against Marcus's hold. "She attacked me. She's insane." "Sir, we have security footage," one of the restaurant managers said, gesturing to the cameras. "We saw everything. You assaulted this woman." "She was harassing my boyfriend," the girlfriend shrieked. Isabella's phone rang. Alexander's name flashed on the screen. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Hello? Are you hurt?" His voice was eerily calm, the kind of calm that preceded hurricanes. "I'm okay. Just a scratch." "Don't lie to me, Isabella. Are you hurt?" "My wrist is sore. I fell, but I'm fine, really." "Who touched you?" She closed her eyes, knowing what was coming. "Alexander." "Who touched you?" "My ex-fiancé, Derek, but it's fine. Security has him." "Put Victor on the phone." She handed it over with shaking hands, watching as Victor's expression shifted from nervous to absolutely terrified as he listened to whatever Alexander was saying. He responded in rapid English, too fast for her to process in her current state, then handed the phone back. "Isabella," Alexander's voice had dropped to pure ice. "I'm 8 minutes away. Don't let him leave. If security tries to release him, tell them who you are. Use my name."
Alexander, please don't do anything. He put his hands on you. He hurt you. There is no universe in which that man walks away without consequences. The line went dead. Isabella looked at Marcus, still restraining Derek on the floor, at Victor, who'd positioned himself protectively beside her, at Derek's girlfriend screaming at the manager, at the crowd of people watching, recording, whispering, and she felt a cold certainty settle in her chest. Derek had no idea what he'd just done, no idea who she was now, no idea about the man whose name she carried. In 8 minutes, his entire world was about to implode. Alexander is on his way, and his fury is legendary. What will happen when Manhattan's most powerful man discovers someone hurt his wife? Derek's reckoning is coming, and it will be devastating. Don't miss what happens next.
Restaurant management had moved everyone to separate areas by the time Alexander arrived. Isabella sat in the manager's office, a paramedic examining her wrist, while Victor stood guard at the door. Marcus remained with Derek in a holding room down the hall, the man's angry protests occasionally audible through the walls. Then she heard it, the sudden shift in atmosphere that always preceded Alexander's arrival, the way conversations stopped, the way people instinctively moved aside. He appeared in the doorway, still in his suit from the investor meeting, but there was nothing civilized about him now. His gray eyes were absolutely black with rage, his jaw so tight she could see the muscle twitching, his hands clenched into fists. 6 of his security team followed, all armed, all wearing the same lethal expression. The manager stood immediately, recognizing power when he saw it, but Alexander only had eyes for Isabella. He crossed to her in 3 strides, his hands cupping her face with devastating gentleness that contrasted sharply with the violence simmering beneath his skin. "Let me see. It's just a bruise." His eyes traveled over her champagne-soaked dress, the bandage on her wrist, the scratch on her elbow, the tear tracks on her cheeks she hadn't realized were there. When he looked at her again, he saw murder in his eyes. "Who is he?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "Point him out." "Alexander, please. Let's just go home. It's not worth it." "Not worth it?" His hand trembled against her cheek. "You're bleeding. You're crying. Someone laid hands on you in violence. My wife, my woman, my everything. And you think it's not worth it?" He switched to rapid instructions with Victor in a mix of English and Spanish, their team's private communication method. Victor bowed slightly and left quickly. "Mr. Kane," the restaurant manager approached nervously, clearly recognizing the name now. "We have the incident on camera. The man who pushed Mrs. Kane is in the next room. We've called the police." "Cancel it," Alexander said flatly. "Sir? The police won't be necessary. I'll handle this personally." The manager went pale. "Mr. Kane, we can't just—" Alexander pulled out his phone, made 1 call, spoke 2 sentences, then hung up. 30 seconds later, the manager's radio crackled. He listened, his face draining of color, then nodded rapidly. "Yes, sir. Of course, sir. The police have been notified it was a misunderstanding." This was Alexander's New York, his city, his kingdom. Isabella watched it all with strange detachment. This was the man the business world feared, the venture capitalist who could make or break startups with a single decision, the power broker who controlled billions in investments and had connections that reached into every corner of Manhattan's elite circles. And he was ready to burn it all down because someone hurt her. "I want to see him," Alexander said, still looking at Isabella. "The man who did this to you. I want you to show me." "What are you going to do?" He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose, gentle kisses completely at odds with the violence radiating from him. "I'm going to make sure he never touches you again, that he never even thinks your name with fear. He's not worth destroying yourself over. You are worth everything."
He pulled back, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "Tell me about him. Tell me why I don't know about an ex-fiancé who clearly hurt you badly enough that you're shaking just from seeing him." She'd never told him the complete story, had given him the basics when they first met: abusive ex, hard times, came to New York for a fresh start, but not the details, not the depth of the betrayal. Looking into his eyes now, she knew he needed to know, deserved to know. "His name is Derek Morrison," she began quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. "We were together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. I thought he loved me. I worked 2 jobs to support us while he was building his consulting business. I paid our rent, our bills, bought his clothes, his car, everything." Alexander's jaw clenched, but he stayed silent, listening. "Then I got pregnant. I was terrified but happy. I thought he would be too. I thought we'd build a family together." Her voice cracked. "He waited until I was 5 months along, until I'd bought baby furniture and painted the nursery. Then one day I came home from work and he was gone." "Isabella," Alexander's voice was raw. "He'd emptied our bank account, my bank account, my savings, taken everything valuable, and left me a note saying he couldn't be tied down to a desperate woman and her trap baby. I lost our apartment, lost both my jobs because I was too pregnant and too poor to keep up appearances. I lived in my car for almost a month. I couldn't look at him anymore, couldn't bear to see the pity or anger in his eyes. I tried to stay healthy for the baby, tried to find food, but I had nothing, no money, no support, no options. And then one morning I woke up and there was blood everywhere, and I knew I couldn't continue." Alexander pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. She felt the rage vibrating through every muscle in his body. "I lost the baby in a county hospital emergency room," she whispered against his chest. "Alone. And then I had nothing left. No baby, no money, no future. I wanted to die." "But you didn't." His voice was thick with emotion. "No, I got angry instead. I spent 2 years rebuilding myself, worked my way up, saved every penny, applied for a position in a Manhattan tech startup because I wanted to be as far from that life as possible." She pulled back to look at him, needing him to understand. "And then I met you at that charity gala. You bid $30,000 for a coffee date with me." "Best investment I ever made," he said fiercely. "You saved me, Alexander. You gave me a life I never dreamed possible. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You made me whole again." His thumbs wiped away her tears with infinite gentleness. "You saved yourself, my love. You were already whole when I found you. I just recognized what everyone else was too blind to see, that you're the strongest person I've ever met." "I don't feel strong right now." "Because he's a ghost from a past that still haunts you." His expression hardened into something lethal. "But ghosts can be exorcised, and I'm very good at making problems disappear. What are you going to do?" That dangerous smile that had first captured her attention 2 years ago. "Have a conversation, man to man, help him understand the magnitude of his mistake." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with precise, controlled movements. "Stay here, this won't take long." "Alexander!" He kissed her, deep and possessive and full of dark promise. "Trust me." Then he was gone, his security team following like shadows, and Isabella was left with terrible certainty that Derek Morrison's comfortable life was about to shatter into a million irreparable pieces. Alexander is about to confront Derek, and his reputation for ruthlessness is well earned. What happens when Manhattan's power broker decides someone needs to be destroyed? The confrontation will be brutal and life-changing. Keep reading.
Through the walls, Isabella heard Derek's door open, heard Derek's aggressive voice. "About damn time someone with authority showed up. I want that crazy woman arrested for—" His voice cut off abruptly. Alexander's voice, too low to make out words, but the tone was unmistakable, dangerous, controlled, absolutely lethal. Then Derek again, louder now, nervous. "Who the hell are you? You can't just—" A crash. Derek's girlfriend screaming, the manager's radio crackling with urgent voices. Isabella stood, despite Victor's protest. She had to see. Through the window of the adjacent room, she watched Alexander lift Derek by the throat with one hand, slamming him against the wall hard enough to crack the plaster. Derek's feet dangled off the ground, his face turning red as he clawed uselessly at Alexander's iron grip. "My name is Alexander Kane," her husband said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The woman you put your hands on is my wife. Do you understand what that means?" He dropped Derek, who collapsed, gasping and coughing. "It means you just signed your own death warrant." Derek scrambled backward on the floor. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was married." "Married?" Alexander's laugh was colder than Isabella had ever heard it. "You think I'm angry because of a marriage certificate? No. I'm angry because you destroyed the woman I love years before I found her, because you left her pregnant and homeless, because you stole from her, abandoned her, caused her to lose a child she desperately wanted." Derek's face went white. "She told you. She's lying. She always—" Alexander's foot connected with Derek's ribs. The crack of bone echoed through the room. Derek's girlfriend screamed. The manager's radio looked away. Victor positioned himself to block Isabella's view, but she stepped around him, needing to see this. "Let me explain something to you." Alexander crouched beside Derek's writhing form. "I built my fortune from the ground up. I control venture capital funds worth billions. I have connections in every major corporation, law firm, and government office in this city. I have security teams that would end a life without question. And that woman in the other room is the only thing in this world I value more than my empire. So when you pushed her, when you made her bleed, when you made her cry, you set in motion consequences you cannot stop. Do you understand? Please, I'm sorry. I'll apologize. Your apology means nothing. Your remorse is worthless." He released him with visible disgust, standing and straightening his suit jacket. "Chen, pull up his information." One of Alexander's security team pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen. "Derek Morrison, age 33, works at Morrison Consulting Group, his father's company. Current salary $290,000. Trust fund worth approximately $1.4 million. Engaged to Christina Hartley, daughter of Hartley Media Group CEO." Alexander's smile was terrifying. "Interesting. Does Daddy know his son is a con artist who preys on vulnerable women?" Derek's eyes widened in terror. "No, please don't." "Does your fiancé know about Isabella, about the baby you abandoned?" "Please." "By tomorrow morning, everyone will know." Alexander pulled out his phone. "Your father will receive documentation of every cent you stole from Isabella. Your fiancé will receive a detailed timeline of your relationship, including medical records from Isabella's miscarriage." Derek was sobbing now. "You can't do this. You'll ruin my life." "Your life?" Alexander's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "You ruined hers. She lost a child, lived in her car, starved, suffered, while you spent her money on whatever meaningless pleasures you desired." He leaned down one final time. "So yes, Derek, I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to take everything from you. Your job, your trust fund, your fiancé, your reputation, your comfortable existence. All of it." "This is insane. You can't." "I can do anything I want. Welcome to my world." Alexander straightened, addressing his team in rapid English mixed with Spanish. "Make sure every major outlet has the story by tonight.
Financial documents, medical records, testimonies from his other victims. Yes, I found 3 more women he's conned. I want his father's company, his fiancée's family, and every social circle he's part of to know exactly what he is. He turned back to Derek one last time. And every time you lose something, every time you feel desperate and worthless and hopeless, I want you to remember the woman you pushed in a restaurant today. I want you to remember that your destruction came because you were foolish enough to hurt someone I love. Alexander walked out without looking back, leaving Derek's pleas echoing behind him. When he re-entered the office where Isabella waited, his expression immediately softened. The monster disappeared, replaced by the man who loved her. "Are you ready to go home?" he asked gently. She should feel guilty, should protest, should tell him it was too much. But looking at him, remembering everything Derek had taken from her, everything he'd destroyed, she felt only relief. "Yes," she whispered. "Take me home." He gathered her carefully, as if she were made of glass, and carried her out of the restaurant. Behind them, Derek's world was already beginning to crumble, and Isabella let herself feel something she hadn't allowed in 3 years. Vindication. Derek's life is unraveling in real time, but the consequences are just beginning. Alexander's power and connections run deep, and his revenge will be thorough and devastating. What happens when the story goes public? Don't miss the fallout.
The drive back to their Tribeca penthouse was silent. Alexander held Isabella's hand the entire time, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, his jaw still tight with residual fury. She watched Manhattan pass by through tinted windows, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the city. "I canceled our reservation at Per Se," he said quietly as they crossed into Tribeca. "That's okay. I'll cook something at home, or we can order from that Italian place you love. Whatever you want, I just want to be with you." His hand tightened on hers. "You have me. Always." When they arrived at the penthouse, Alexander dismissed the household staff for the evening, sent his security team to their posts, and led Isabella to their master suite. He unzipped her ruined dress carefully, his fingers gentle on her skin, despite the violence still simmering beneath the surface. "Shower with me," he said softly. She nodded, letting him guide her to their bathroom, a space of marble and glass that overlooked the Hudson River. Under the hot water, he washed her hair with slow, soothing movements. He cleaned her injured wrist with careful attention, pressed kisses to her shoulders, her neck, her temple. No urgency, no demand, just tenderness. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He turned her to face him, water streaming between them. "For what?" "For never telling you the whole story, for letting him affect me so much, for—" "Stop." His hands cupped her face. "You have nothing to apologize for. Trauma doesn't have an expiration date. Pain doesn't disappear because we want it to. You survived something devastating, and you're allowed to carry scars." Tears mixed with shower water. "I thought I was over it." "Healing isn't linear, my love. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes we take steps backwards, but you're not alone anymore. You don't have to carry this by yourself." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips with infinite patience. "I've got you. I'll always have you." They stood there until the water ran cold, just holding each other, until Isabella's trembling stopped and her breathing evened out. Later, wrapped in plush robes, they sat on their bedroom balcony overlooking the Hudson as the sun set over Manhattan. Alexander had ordered her favorite meal, pasta carbonara from Angelo's, and opened a bottle of expensive Italian wine. "Eat," he encouraged, placing choice portions on her plate. "You need your strength." She managed a few bites, more to please him than from actual hunger. What happens now with Derek? Alexander's expression hardened immediately. By morning, his fiancée will have broken off her engagement. By noon, his father will have removed him from the company. By evening, his trust fund will be frozen pending investigation into fraudulent activities. Within a week, he'll be unemployable anywhere in his industry. Within a month, he'll be broke. He paused, taking a sip of wine. The money he stole from you, I've already had it seized from his accounts. You'll have it back, with interest, by Friday. You did all that in 3 hours? I made some calls. He shrugged as if he'd done nothing more significant than order takeout. I have resources. Alexander, she set down her fork. Do you think it's too much? Do you want me to ask you to stop? Did she? Derek destroyed her life without hesitation, had left her to suffer while he moved on to his next victim, living comfortably on her money. She'd rebuilt herself through sheer force of will, but the scars had never really healed. No, she said softly, I don't want you to stop. Satisfaction gleamed in his eyes. Good, because I wasn't going to. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights beginning to twinkle below them as twilight deepened. Then Isabella asked the question that had been bothering her. How do you do it? Control this entire city? You're only 32. Alexander smiled, that dangerous smile that always made her pulse race. My father built a venture capital empire before he died 7 years ago. When I inherited it, I was 25 with a Harvard MBA and something to prove. But I'm not my father. He ruled through money alone. I rule through strategy, connections, and calculated investments. I give people what they want: funding for their startups, connections to the right investors, solutions to their problems. In return, they give me loyalty, access, and information. I've funded half the successful tech companies in this city. I sit on a dozen boards. I know everyone who matters and exactly what leverage I have with each of them. And if they betray you, then I remind them why fear is a more powerful motivator than gratitude. He reached across the small table to take her hand. Does it bother you, what I am, what I do? She considered carefully. When they met at that charity gala 2 years ago, she knew he was wealthy and influential, but not the full extent of it. The truth revealed itself gradually. The security details, the deference people showed him, the way his phone calls could change outcomes. By the time she understood the scope of his power, she was already in love with him. I won't pretend to love everything about your world, she said honestly. The calculated moves, the way you can destroy someone with a phone call, the moral complexity of it all. But I love you, and I know that everything you do, every ruthless decision, it's to protect what you've built and the people you care about. You're not one of those women who fell in love with the power, are you? Vulnerability flickered across his face. You love me despite it, not because of it. I love you for you. She moved from her chair to his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. The man who brings me coffee every morning exactly how I like it, who learns Spanish to surprise me on our anniversary, who holds me when I have nightmares, who makes me feel safe and cherished and valued. That's who I love. He buried his face in her neck, his arms tightening around her. I don't deserve you. We deserve each other. She tilted his face to meet her eyes. We're both survivors, Alexander. We've both crawled out of dark places and built ourselves into something stronger. That's why this works. We understand each other's scars. He kissed her then, deep and slow, pouring everything he felt into it. Love, possession, gratitude, need. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with emotion. I need you. I need to feel you. Know you're safe. Know you're mine. I'm here. I'm yours. Always.
He carried her inside to their bed, laying her down with reverent care. Their lovemaking was slow and intense, a reaffirmation of everything they meant to each other. Every touch was a promise, every kiss was a declaration, every whispered word was a vow. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, breathless and complete. Isabella felt the last of the day's trauma release its grip on her heart. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "I love you more, my everything." She fell asleep in his arms, safe and loved, while outside their penthouse, Alexander's network worked through the night to systematically dismantle Derek Morrison's entire existence. The wheels of Alexander's revenge are turning, and Derek is about to have his life collapse spectacularly. But how will the public react when the story breaks? The next morning will bring shocking revelations that will make Derek wish he'd never seen Isabella again.
The next morning, Isabella woke to Alexander's phone ringing incessantly. He extracted himself from her arms with a whispered apology, taking the call as he walked to their balcony. She could hear him speaking in rapid English, his tone businesslike despite the early hour. She stretched, feeling pleasantly sore from last night, and reached for her own phone on the nightstand. 73 missed calls, 42 voicemails, hundreds of text messages. Her stomach dropped. The first text was from her best friend, Maya, back in Chicago. "Girl, what is happening? You're married to Alexander Kane, and that's your ex getting destroyed on social media right now?" With trembling hands, Isabella opened Twitter. The top trending topic in New York, no, the entire country, was hashtag Lumiere Restaurant Incident. Someone had posted the security footage, the entire confrontation. Derek shoving Marcus, knocking her down, standing over her with contempt on his face. The video had 23 million views and counting. But that wasn't the worst of it. Someone, definitely one of Alexander's people, had created a devastating thread exposing Derek's entire history. Since Derek Morrison wants to assault women in public, let's talk about his pattern of financial and emotional abuse. The thread included everything: bank statements showing the money he'd stolen from her, medical records from her miscarriage, testimonies from 3 other women he'd conned, his engagement announcement to Christina, juxtaposed with a timeline proving he'd started dating her while still taking Isabella's money. The internet was eviscerating him. But worse, they'd leaked Alexander's identity. Photos of them together at charity events, their marriage certificate, articles about Kane Ventures and Alexander's influence in Manhattan's tech and finance sectors. "Oh, God," Isabella whispered. Alexander returned, his expression grim. "You've seen it. The whole world has seen it." He sat beside her, taking the phone from her trembling hands. "I know this feels overwhelming, but look at the response. Look at how people are reacting." He was right. Scrolling through thousands of comments, the overwhelming sentiment was supportive. Derek Morrison is absolute trash. She deserves better, and clearly found it. A billionaire husband with revenge on his mind? That's the dream. The way Alexander Kane picked her up and carried her out like she was precious, that's love. Derek Morrison trending for being exposed as a predator. Good, rot in obscurity. Isabella, if you see this, you're a survivor and an inspiration. Hold your head high. The audacity of this man to assault his pregnant ex who he abandoned, then act shocked when her powerful husband destroys his entire life. More texts flooded in, former colleagues, friends she hadn't spoken to in years, even some of Alexander's business associates offering support. "How are you so calm about this?" Isabella asked, still processing. Alexander shrugged, though his eyes were calculating. "Because controlling the narrative is part of controlling power. Yes, people now know I'm your husband. They know what I'm capable of when someone hurts you, but they also see that I protect what's mine with absolute commitment. That's not bad for my reputation. It's reinforcement." His phone rang again.
He glanced at the caller ID and smiled coldly. "Speaking of which," he answered, switching to speaker. "Morrison." "Mr. Kane, this is Richard Morrison, Derek's father. We need to talk about my son." "There's nothing to discuss. Your son assaulted my wife. Actions have consequences. He made a mistake, a regrettable mistake certainly, but ruining his entire life seems—" "He ruined your life first," Alexander cut him off. "I'm simply returning the favor." "What do you want? Money? A business deal? Name your price to make this go away." Alexander's eyes met Isabella's, and she saw cold amusement there. "You think I can be bought?" "Everyone can be bought, Mr. Kane. I've been in business 40 years. I know how this works." "Then let me educate you on how my world works." Alexander's voice went deadly. "Your son stole from a vulnerable woman, left her homeless and pregnant, caused her to lose a child from stress and malnutrition. Then yesterday, he physically assaulted her in public. These aren't mistakes, Mr. Morrison. These are patterns that reveal his character. She probably—" "Choose your next words very carefully," Alexander interrupted, his tone like ice. "Because if you disparage my wife in any way, I will extend my retribution to include you personally, your company, your reputation, everything you've built." Silence on the other end. "Here's what's going to happen," Alexander continued. "Your son will issue a public apology to my wife and the other women he's conned. He will enter therapy to address his abusive behavior. He will pay full restitution to all his victims, and he will never come within 500 feet of my wife again. If he does, I'll consider it an act of aggression and respond accordingly. This is extortion. No, this is justice. If you want to involve law enforcement, please do. I have excellent lawyers and more than enough evidence to have your son prosecuted for fraud, theft, and assault. Your choice." A long pause, then defeated. "He'll comply. Smart decision." Alexander ended the call without saying goodbye. Isabella stared at him. "You're enjoying this?" "Immensely. Is that wrong?" She considered, then smiled slowly. "No, I think I'm enjoying it too." He laughed, genuine and warm, and pulled her close. "That's my girl." Derek's world is collapsing in real time, and the public is watching every moment. But the humiliation is far from over. Derek's apology and the continuing fallout will be spectacular. What happens when everything he built crumbles? Keep reading.
Over the next 4 days, Isabella watched Derek Morrison's life disintegrate in real time through social media and news outlets. Day 1, Christina Hartley posted a statement on Instagram that immediately went viral. "I'm devastated to learn the truth about the man I thought I knew. Derek Morrison lied to me about his past, his character, and the treatment of women. I cannot and will not associate myself with someone who has caused such harm. Our engagement is terminated effective immediately. To Isabella Kane and the other women he hurt, I'm so sorry. You deserved better." The post had 15 million likes. Day 2, Morrison Consulting Group released an official statement. "After a thorough investigation, we have terminated Derek Morrison's employment effective immediately. Morrison Consulting Group does not tolerate fraud, abuse, or misconduct of any kind. We are cooperating fully with authorities in conducting an internal review of all his past dealings." Day 3, 3 major news outlets, the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal, published detailed investigations into Derek's pattern of financial and emotional abuse. They'd interviewed the other 3 women Alexander's team had found, each with eerily similar stories of theft, manipulation, and abandonment. The articles painted a devastating picture of a serial con artist who specifically targeted successful, independent women, isolated them, drained their resources, then discarded them when they had nothing left to take. Day 4,
Derek's trust fund was frozen, pending investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission. His bank accounts were seized. His luxury apartment in Chelsea was being foreclosed. His BMW was repossessed. Everything he'd built on stolen money was collapsing. The public apology came on the 5th day. Isabella was in their home office, reviewing proposals for the foundation she was planning to launch, when Alexander called her to the living room. "You need to see this," he said quietly. On their television, Derek stood in front of a cluster of microphones and cameras. He looked haggard, eyes hollow, face pale, expensive suit replaced with a rumpled button-down. He'd aged a decade in 5 days. Christina's father stood beside him, clearly there to ensure Derek followed the script. Isabella's hand found Alexander's, squeezing tight. Derek cleared his throat and began reading from a prepared statement, his voice shaking. "I want to apologize to Isabella Kane, formerly Isabella Martinez, for the pain and suffering I caused her. I was selfish, cruel, and abusive. I stole from her. I abandoned her when she was pregnant and vulnerable. I caused her to lose her child. Then I physically assaulted her when she had done nothing to deserve it." His voice cracked. Isabella felt nothing, no satisfaction, no pity, just cold detachment. "There is no excuse for my behavior, no justification. I hurt Isabella and at least 3 other women in similar ways, and I take full responsibility for my actions." He looked directly into the camera, and Isabella knew Alexander scripted this part specifically. "To Mr. Kane, I apologize for hurting your wife. I understand now the magnitude of my actions and accept full responsibility for the consequences. I am entering therapy to address my abusive patterns. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends to the women I have hurt." The cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Derek's lawyer stepped forward to end the press conference. Isabella turned off the television and looked at Alexander, who was watching her carefully. "How do you feel?" she asked. She considered. "Lighter, like I've been carrying a weight for 3 years and finally put it down." "Good," he pulled her into his arms. "You never have to carry anything alone again. Whatever burdens you have, they're ours now. We shoulder them together." "That's not fair to you." "Love isn't about fairness, it's about choice." His gray eyes held hers with absolute certainty. "I choose you, Isabella, every day, every moment. I choose you." She kissed him, pouring 3 years of pain and healing and gratitude into it. "I choose you, too." That evening, Alexander surprised her by taking her to a private rooftop restaurant in Soho. The entire space had been reserved just for them. Candlelit tables, her favorite flowers everywhere, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. "What's all this?" she asked as he pulled out her chair. "A celebration." "Of what?" "You, your strength, your resilience, your freedom from the past." He sat across from her, taking her hand. "I know the last week has been overwhelming. I wanted to give you something beautiful to remember instead." Dinner was exquisite, a fusion of Italian and Latin cuisines that somehow worked perfectly. They ate and talked and laughed, and Isabella felt more herself than she had in weeks. After dessert, Alexander stood and extended his hand. "Dance with me." "There's no music anymore." He pulled out his phone, pressed play, and At Last by Etta James filled the rooftop. He'd been learning her favorite songs, building playlists that mixed her tastes with his. They swayed together under the stars, his arms around her waist, her head on his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For loving me, for protecting me, for giving me a life I never imagined possible. Thank you for trusting me with your heart. Thank you for seeing past what I am to who I am. Thank you for choosing me when you could have anyone." He kissed her there under the Manhattan stars, and Isabella felt the last piece of her broken heart finally heal. Derek had shattered her, but Alexander had gathered every fragment and put her back together with gold, the Japanese art of kintsugi, making something more beautiful for having been broken. The music swelled. They danced until midnight, wrapped in each other and the promise of tomorrow. Derek's apology is done, but Isabella's journey is just beginning. With Alexander's support, she's planning something that will transform her pain into purpose. What will she create from her trauma? The next chapter reveals her powerful vision. Don't miss it.
2 weeks later, on a cold January morning, Isabella sat in their home office, staring at her laptop screen. A notification from her bank showed a deposit of $173,000, every cent Derek had stolen, plus interest, plus compensation for pain and suffering as determined by Alexander's legal team. She stared at the number, remembering the girl who'd had $12 and a prayer, who'd rebuilt herself from absolute nothing. That girl felt like she'd existed in another lifetime. "What will you do with it?" Alexander asked, reading over her shoulder as he brought her morning coffee, perfectly made with oat milk and cinnamon, exactly how she liked it. An idea had been forming for weeks now, crystallizing with each passing day. "I want to start a foundation," she said slowly, "for women who've been financially abused by partners, help them get back on their feet, provide resources, housing, job training, therapy, legal support, everything I wish I'd had." Alexander's smile was brilliant. "I think that's perfect. It would take time to set up, and I'd need to find a location, and I'll match whatever you put in, and I'll help you set it up. My legal team can handle the paperwork. My real estate people can find the perfect location." "Alexander, you don't have to." "I want to." He knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. "This is important. You're taking your pain and transforming it into something that will change lives. That's powerful, Isabella. That's who you are." Her eyes filled with tears. "What should we call it?" He considered, then smiled. "The Phoenix Foundation, because you rose from ashes, and you're going to help other women do the same." "The Phoenix Foundation," she repeated, the name settling into place like it had always been meant to exist. "I love it." They spent the next month in intense planning. Alexander's legal team set up the 501c3 nonprofit structure. His real estate people found a beautiful 4-story building in the West Village, recently renovated, perfect for conversion into housing and resource center. Isabella poured herself into the work with fierce dedication. She researched best practices for domestic abuse recovery, interviewed social workers and therapists, designed programs for job training and financial literacy. Alexander watched her come alive in a way he'd never seen before. This wasn't just charity. This was mission, purpose, calling. "You're doing it again," he said one evening, finding her still at her desk at 11 p.m., surrounded by papers and architectural plans. "Doing what?" "Being extraordinary." He came up behind her, massaging her shoulders. "But you need to sleep, my love. The foundation will still be here tomorrow." "I just want to get it right. These women, they'll be trusting us with their lives, their futures. I can't let them down." "You won't." He turned her chair to face him. "You know why? Because you've been where they are. You understand their fear, their shame, their desperate hope for something better. That empathy will make all the difference." She stood, wrapping her arms around him. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" "I'm the lucky one." He kissed her forehead. "Now come to bed. Tomorrow we meet with the design team about the childcare center." The renovation took 6 weeks. Isabella was there almost every day, watching as the building transformed. The first floor became a resource center, offices for legal aid, financial counseling, job placement, and therapy. The second floor held classrooms for job training and skill development. The third floor was a state-of-the-art childcare center. The fourth floor provided temporary housing, 20 private rooms, each with its own bathroom, comfortable furniture, and a sense of dignity. "No institutional feel," Isabella insisted to the designers.
These women have been through enough. I want them to feel safe, valued, respected, like they matter." The designers understood. They created spaces that were warm, welcoming, and beautiful without being ostentatious. Earth tones, natural light, plants everywhere, artwork created by survivors. Alexander funded everything without hesitation, $3.7 million in total. When Isabella protested it was too much, he simply said, "This is the best investment I'll ever make." He also recruited high-powered volunteers from his network, lawyers who would provide pro bono services, executives who'd offer job training, therapists who'd donate their time, investors who'd fund the operating costs in perpetuity. The Phoenix Foundation's launch event was scheduled for March 15th, 3 months after Derek's public humiliation, 3 months of intensive preparation, 3 months of transforming pain to purpose. The night before the launch, Isabella stood in the completed building, walking through empty rooms that would soon house women seeking second chances. Alexander found her in one of the fourth-floor bedrooms, standing by the window looking out at the Manhattan skyline. "What are you thinking?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "That 3 years ago I was sleeping in my car, wondering if I'd ever feel safe again, wondering if I'd ever matter to anyone." She leaned back against him. "And now I'm here, married to you, about to open a foundation that might save lives. It doesn't feel real." "It's real because you made it real. You did this, Isabella. Your vision, your heart, your determination. We did this. I couldn't have done any of it without you." "We're partners," he said simply, "in everything. Your dreams are my dreams. Your mission is my mission." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "I love you so much, it scares me sometimes." "I love you more," he kissed her softly. "And tomorrow, we're going to show the world what's possible when someone refuses to let trauma define them." The Phoenix Foundation is about to open its doors, and Isabella's transformation from victim to advocate is nearly complete. But the launch will bring unexpected emotions and a powerful moment of closure. What happens when everything comes together? Keep watching.
March 15th dawned clear and cold. Perfect early spring weather in Manhattan. Isabella woke before dawn, too excited and nervous to sleep. Alexander was already up, standing on their balcony with coffee, watching the city wake up. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked, joining him. "Too excited." He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Today, you changed the world." The launch event was scheduled for 2 p.m., but they arrived at the foundation at 9 a.m. for final preparations. The building looked beautiful, banners hanging from the facade, flowers arranged at the entrance, media already setting up across the street. Inside, volunteers rushed around making last-minute arrangements. Caterers prepared refreshments. The therapy offices gleamed with new furniture. The child care center was stocked with toys and books. The temporary housing rooms were ready with fresh linens and welcome baskets. "It's perfect," Isabella breathed. Maya arrived from Chicago at 11 a.m., pulling Isabella into a fierce hug. "Girl, I'm so proud of you I could cry." "Please don't. You'll make me cry too." Too late. Maya was already tearing up. "Look at you. Look at what you built." By 1:30 p.m., the crowd outside was substantial. Media, supporters, curious onlookers, and several women who'd quietly inquired about services. Alexander's security team managed the flow with professional efficiency. At 2 p.m. exactly, Isabella and Alexander stood at the podium in front of the building, cameras flashing, microphones extended. Isabella's hands shook as she unfolded her prepared remarks. Alexander squeezed her hand once, a silent message of support, then stepped slightly back, letting this be her moment. 3 years ago, Isabella began, her voice stronger than she felt. "I was homeless. I was pregnant and alone. I'd been abandoned by someone I trusted, left with nothing but a car I was sleeping in and a future that looked impossibly dark. The crowd was silent, listening. I lost everything: my home, my savings, my job, and eventually my baby. I wanted to give up. I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never be whole again. Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. But I survived. I rebuilt myself, piece by piece. I found work, I found purpose, and eventually I found love and partnership with a man who saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. She glanced at Alexander, who was watching her with such pride it made her heart ache. The Phoenix Foundation exists because I lived that experience, because I know what it's like to have nothing and no one, because I understand the fear, the shame, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, things can be better. She gestured to the building behind her. This foundation provides housing, legal support, financial counseling, job training, therapy, and childcare for women escaping financially abusive relationships. We offer a safe space to heal, resources to rebuild, and a community that understands. She glanced at several women in the crowd who'd reached out during the past weeks, survivors, like her, drawn to this moment. I had to rebuild alone, but the women who come through these doors won't have to. We'll be here for every step of their journey, because everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to rise from their ashes. She paused, emotion overwhelming her for a moment. To anyone out there who's where I was 3 years ago, sleeping in your car, wondering if you matter, wondering if you'll ever be okay again, I want you to know you will. You're stronger than you know, and you're not alone. We're here, we're ready, and we believe in you. The applause was thunderous. Isabella saw tears on many faces in the crowd, not just women, but men too, moved by the honesty and vulnerability of her words. Alexander stepped forward, his hand on the small of her back, his own voice steady as he spoke. The Phoenix Foundation is fully funded in perpetuity through an endowment of $20 million. We will never turn away a woman in need. We will never charge for our services, and we will never stop fighting for survivors. More applause, questions from reporters, but Isabella barely heard them because at the back of the crowd she saw a woman holding a small girl's hand, tears streaming down her face. The woman was thin, exhausted-looking, wearing clothes that saw better days, but there was hope in her eyes, desperate, fragile hope. Isabella excused herself from the podium and walked directly to the woman, ignoring protocol, ignoring the cameras. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm Isabella. I know. I saw the news about what your ex did, about what you went through. What's your name?" "Rachel. This is my daughter, Emma. She's 4. Emma looked up with big brown eyes, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. "Are you here because you need help?" Isabella asked gently. Rachel nodded, tears falling faster. "My boyfriend, he took everything. My money, my credit cards, everything. I've been staying at a shelter, but they can only keep us for 30 days, and I don't know what to do. I don't have family. I don't have anywhere to go. I saw your story, and I thought, maybe—" "You're safe now," Isabella said firmly, taking Rachel's hand. "You and Emma, you're safe." She turned, catching Alexander's eye. He understood immediately, speaking quickly to one of their program directors. "Rachel, this is Maria," Isabella introduced the director, who rushed over. "She's going to get you and Emma settled in your room upstairs. You'll have your own space, your own bathroom. Emma can start in our childcare program tomorrow while you meet with our counselors. We're going to help you figure everything out, okay? One step at a time." Rachel was sobbing now. Thank you so much." "You don't have to thank me. Just promise me you'll believe in yourself.
Promise me you'll remember you're stronger than you think." Rachel nodded, clutching Isabella's hand like a lifeline. As Maria led Rachel and Emma inside, Alexander's arm was around her waist. "First resident?" he asked softly. "First of many." She leaned into him, watching Rachel disappear into the building that represented hope, second chances, and the possibility of transformation. The cameras were still rolling, capturing this moment, but Isabella didn't care about the publicity anymore. She cared about Rachel, about Emma, about every woman who would walk through those doors seeking a way forward. She'd been broken, she'd been destroyed, but she had risen, and now she was going to help others do the same. The Phoenix Foundation is open, and lives are already being changed. But Isabella's work is just beginning, and an unexpected message from the past will test her resolve. What happens when Derek reaches out one final time? The emotional conclusion approaches.
The Phoenix Foundation's first month exceeded every expectation. 20 women moved into the temporary housing, 50 more enrolled in job training programs. Legal aid helped 12 women file protective orders. The child care center was always full of laughter. Isabella was there almost every day, meeting with residents, overseeing programs, and personally ensuring no one fell through the cracks. She saw herself in every woman who walked through the doors, the fear, the shame, the desperate hope for something better. Rachel, the first resident, was thriving. She'd completed a medical billing certification program and had 3 job interviews scheduled. Emma was flourishing in childcare, her shyness gradually giving way to confidence. "You changed my life," Rachel told Isabella one afternoon, tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't repay it, you pay it forward. When you're back on your feet, you help the next woman who needs it. That's how we change the world. One person lifting up another." Alexander watched from the sidelines with visible pride. He attended every board meeting, reviewed every budget, and personally vetted every major decision. But he let Isabella lead, understanding this was her mission, her purpose, her calling. "You're extraordinary," he told her one evening as they prepared for bed. "What you've built in just 1 month." "What we've built," she corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Partner," he agreed, pulling her close, "in everything." They were planning their first major fundraising gala when Isabella's phone dinged with an email notification. She almost ignored it. Her inbox was always overflowing lately, but something made her open it. The sender name made her freeze. Derek Morrison. "What is it?" Alexander noticed immediately, always attuned to her reactions. "Derek emailed me." His expression went cold and dangerous. "What does it say?" With trembling hands, she read it aloud. "Isabella, I know I have no right to contact you. I know I don't deserve any response, but I saw the news about the Phoenix Foundation, and I wanted to say, I'm proud of you. You took the worst thing I ever did to you and turned it into something beautiful. That's who you always were, someone who found light in darkness. I was too selfish and broken to see it. I'm in therapy now, really trying to change. I'm working a regular job, nothing glamorous, but honest work. My father won't speak to me. Christina's family threatened legal action if I ever contact her. I'm living in a studio in Queens, barely making rent. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you deserved so much better than I gave you. I hope you're happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Derek. Silence filled their bedroom. How do you feel? Alexander asked carefully, his protective instincts clearly on high alert. Isabella thought about it. 3 months ago, seeing Derek's name would have sent her into panic. Even 1 month ago, it might have stirred anger or pain. But now, reading his words, she felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pain. Just complete, peaceful indifference.
"I feel free," she said finally, "like that chapter is completely closed. He's part of my past, and I'm focused on my future. Do you want to respond?" She considered, then shook her head. "No, there's nothing to say. He's on his own journey now, and I hope he finds healing. But his redemption isn't my responsibility." She deleted the email and set down her phone with a sense of finality. "Besides," she said, turning to face Alexander, "I have everything I need right here. A husband who loves me, work that matters, women's lives that are being transformed. Why would I waste energy on someone who's irrelevant to my present?" Alexander pulled her into his arms, and she felt the tension leave his body. "I love you, my phoenix, my fighter, my everything. I love you too, my protector, my partner, my home." They stood there in their bedroom, the Manhattan skyline glittering outside, holding each other in the beautiful future they were building together. Isabella had been broken, abandoned, destroyed, but she'd risen from those ashes stronger, wiser, and more powerful than she'd ever imagined possible. Derek had pushed her down in that restaurant, thinking she was still the broken woman he'd left behind. He couldn't have been more wrong. She was Isabella Kane now, philanthropist, advocate, survivor, warrior, wife to one of New York's most powerful men, founder of a movement that was changing lives, and this was only the beginning. Derek's attempt at redemption falls flat because Isabella has moved beyond needing his apology. But her journey isn't over yet. The foundation will face its first major challenge, and Isabella will prove just how strong she's become.
3 months after opening, the Phoenix Foundation hosted its first major fundraising gala at the Plaza Hotel. Isabella had been planning for weeks, a black tie event designed to raise awareness and funding while celebrating the survivors who'd rebuilt their lives. She stood in front of her closet the evening of the gala, selecting a gown. Her hand hovered over an understated navy dress before Alexander appeared behind her. "Not that one," he said, pulling out a stunning red gown she'd been avoiding. "Too bold, too attention-grabbing, too much." "It's too much," she protested. "You're the guest of honor at your own gala. You're allowed to be too much." He held the dress against her, his eyes meeting hers in the mirror. "You've spent your whole life making yourself smaller. Tonight, take up space. Own your power." She took the dress, her heart racing. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best," he kissed her neck. "Now get ready. We have a world to impress." An hour later, Isabella descended the stairs in the red gown, her hair swept up, diamond earrings catching the light. Alexander waited at the bottom, devastating in his tuxedo, and the look in his eyes made her feel like the only woman in the world. "Breathtaking," he murmured, offering his arm. "Ready?" "Ready." The Plaza Ballroom was transformed. Crystal chandeliers, silk drapes, tables set with elegant centerpieces. 500 guests mingled, Manhattan's elite, celebrities who'd heard about the foundation, tech entrepreneurs from Alexander's network, and survivors from the program dressed in donated gowns. Isabella moved through the crowd with growing confidence. She'd been nervous about this event, worried about public speaking, concerned about asking for money, but seeing the survivors laughing and dancing, seeing the interest and support from powerful people, she felt her purpose crystallize. This was bigger than her, bigger than Derek, bigger than revenge or vindication. This was about creating a legacy of hope. "Isabella Kane?" A woman approached, 50s, elegant, with kind eyes. "I'm Margaret Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies. I wanted to thank you for what you're doing." "Thank you for coming." "No, you don't understand." Margaret's voice dropped. 20 years ago, I was where your residents are now. My ex-husband left me bankrupt with 2 kids. I slept in my car. I thought my life was over. But I rebuilt myself, and now I run a billion-dollar company. When I read about the Phoenix Foundation, I cried because I wished it had existed when I needed it. She handed Isabella an envelope. This is a check for $500,000, and I want to join your board of directors if you'll have me." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "We'd be honored." Margaret smiled. "No, the honor is mine. Keep doing this work. You're saving lives." Similar conversations happened throughout the evening. A venture capitalist donated $250,000, a hedge fund manager pledged annual support, a tech CEO offered job placement partnerships. By the time Isabella took the stage for her speech, they'd raised $2.3 million. She stood at the podium, looking out at 500 faces, and felt Alexander's presence in the front row, steady, supportive, proud. "Thank you all for being here. Tonight isn't about me. It's about the 23 women currently living at the Phoenix Foundation. It's about the 147 women who've used our services in just 3 months. It's about every woman who's ever been told she's worthless, that she's nothing, that she'll never amount to anything, and proved them wrong by surviving." She paused, letting the words sink in. Financial abuse is insidious. It's not bruises that heal. It's stolen identities, destroyed credit, empty bank accounts, and the psychological trauma of being made completely dependent. It's being left homeless with children. It's watching your dreams die because someone else decided you didn't matter. Her voice strengthened. But here's what abusers don't understand. You can't destroy someone's spirit by taking their money. You can't break someone who refuses to stay broken. And when survivors find support, when they find resources, when they find community, they don't just rebuild, they become unstoppable. Applause rippled through the room. Rachel was our first resident. 3 months ago, she arrived with her 4-year-old daughter, $12 in her pocket, and nowhere to go. Today, she starts a job as a medical billing specialist, making $45,000 a year. She has her own apartment. Her daughter is thriving. She's taking back her life. She's rebuilding her credit. She's taking back her life. Isabella gestured to Rachel, who stood and waved, tears streaming down her face as the ballroom erupted in applause. That's the power of second chances. That's what your donations create. You're not just funding a building, you're funding futures. You're funding hope. You're funding the message that no matter how far you've fallen, you can rise again. She locked eyes with Alexander. 3 years ago, I was sleeping in my car, wondering if I mattered. Tonight, I'm standing in the Plaza Hotel, having raised millions of dollars to help women who were exactly where I was. If that's not proof of transformation is possible, I don't know what is. The standing ovation was deafening. Isabella saw tears on faces throughout the room, not pity, but recognition of shared humanity, shared struggle, shared triumph. As she left the stage, Alexander was there immediately, pulling her into his arms. "You're magnificent," he shrugged. "Absolutely magnificent." The rest of the evening was a blur of congratulations, handshakes, tearful thank yous from survivors, and pledges of ongoing support. By midnight, when the last guest left and they stood alone in the empty ballroom, the total raised had reached $3.7 million. "We did it," Isabella breathed, still in disbelief. "You did it," Alexander corrected, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You took your pain and built an empire of hope. I just helped with the logistics." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "No, we did this together. Your connections, your funding, your belief in me when I didn't believe in myself. This is ours." He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of everything words couldn't express. "Home?" he asked. "Home." They walked out of the plaza into the warm spring night, hand in hand, leaving behind an evening that would fund second chances for hundreds of women. The gala was a triumph, but Isabella's work has only begun. The foundation is growing beyond her wildest dreams, and with growth comes new challenges. What happens when success brings unexpected complications? Keep reading to find out. 6 months after opening, the Phoenix Foundation was bursting at capacity. The original 20 temporary housing rooms were always full, with a waiting list of 30 women. Job training programs had expanded to include tech skills, culinary arts, and business management. The legal aid department had helped 87 women file protective orders and represented 43 in divorce proceedings. Success brought new challenges. "We need to expand," Isabella told Alexander one evening, reviewing their quarterly reports in their home office. "We're turning away 3 women for every one we can help. That's not acceptable." "I've been thinking about that." He pulled up a file on his laptop. "There's a building in Brooklyn Heights, 6 stories, recently renovated, perfect location. It could house 50 women plus expanded programming space." "Alexander, that's gotta cost." "8 million, but it's worth it, and we have the funds from the gala plus the endowment growth." She studied the building specs, her mind already designing the space. More housing, bigger childcare center, dedicated trauma therapy wing, technology training lab. "Let's do it," she said decisively. He smiled. "I already made the offer. We close in 30 days. She laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible." "I'm efficient. There's a difference." The expansion process consumed the next 3 months. Isabella oversaw every detail while maintaining the existing foundation operations. She interviewed hundreds of applicants for new staff positions, reviewed architectural plans, secured additional funding, and coordinated with city officials for permits and licenses. She was working 16-hour days, fueled by purpose and an insane amount of coffee. "You're going to burn out," Alexander warned, finding her at her desk at 2 a.m. reviewing therapy protocols. "I'm fine." "Isabella," he closed her laptop gently but firmly, "you can't help anyone if you destroy yourself in the process. You need rest. There's too much to do, and it will all still be there tomorrow. Come to bed." She wanted to argue, but exhaustion overwhelmed her. He carried her to their bedroom, tucked her in fully clothed, and she was asleep before her head hit the pillow. The next morning, she woke to find he'd rescheduled her entire day, moving meetings to the following week and assigning tasks to her leadership team. "You can't just rearrange my schedule," she protested. "I can, and I did. Today, you rest. Tomorrow, we go to the Hamptons for the weekend. Non-negotiable." "Alexander, you're not just the founder of the Phoenix Foundation. You're my wife, and I won't watch you work yourself into exhaustion, even for the best cause in the world. You taught those women that self-care isn't selfish. Now practice what you preach." He was right. She knew he was right. They spent a long weekend at his Hamptons estate, sleeping late, walking on the beach, talking about everything except work. By Sunday evening, Isabella felt recharged, her perspective restored. "Thank you," she told him as they watched the sunset over the ocean. "I needed that." "I know. That's why I'm your partner, to catch you when you forget to catch yourself." The Brooklyn Heights location opened in October with a grand celebration. The governor attended, along with the mayor, celebrities, and hundreds of supporters. The media coverage was extensive. The Phoenix Foundation was becoming a national model for survivor support. But the attention brought unexpected complications. Isabella started receiving emails and calls from women across the country, desperate for help the foundation couldn't provide from New York. Advocacy groups wanted to partner. Other cities wanted to replicate the model. The needs were overwhelming. "We could franchise," suggested Marcus, now serving as the foundation's COO, "license our model to organizations in other cities, provide training and support while they build local versions." Isabella considered this carefully. Expansion meant more women helped, but also meant less direct control, potential quality issues, and the risk of others misusing the Phoenix Foundation name. "What do you think?" she asked Alexander that evening. "I think you're afraid of success," he said gently. "You've spent so long fighting to survive. Now that you're thriving, you don't quite trust it." She started to protest, then stopped. He was right. Growing doesn't mean losing control. It means empowering others to do what you've done. You can't personally help every woman in America, but you can create a model that allows others to help in their communities. She thought of all the women she'd turned away, all the desperate emails from places like Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, Houston, all the potential that was being wasted because she was afraid to let go. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it, but we do it right. Extensive training, regular audits, quality control measures. The Phoenix Foundation name means something. It means safety, dignity, and real support. Anyone who uses it has to maintain those standards." Agreed. Over the next 3 months, they developed a comprehensive franchising program. Phoenix chapters began opening in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Boston, each run by carefully vetted nonprofit organizations that shared their values. By the 1-year anniversary of the original foundation, the Phoenix Network was helping over 300 women across 4 cities, with 5 more locations in development. Isabella stood in the original West Village building, looking at photos of women who'd moved through the program. Rachel, now thriving in her own apartment with Emma. Jennifer, who'd completed culinary training and now worked as a sous chef. Maria, who'd earned her GED and started community college. Dozens of faces, dozens of stories, dozens of lives transformed. "You did this," Alexander said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "We did this," she corrected automatically. "No, my love. This vision, this heart, this determination to turn pain into purpose, that's all you. I just provided resources. You provided the soul." She turned in his arms, struck by the journey they'd traveled together, from her brokenness to this moment of profound purpose. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you more." The Phoenix Foundation is now a national movement, but Isabella's greatest challenge is still ahead. An unexpected crisis will test everything she's built and force her to confront the final piece of her healing. What happens when the past and present collide? Don't miss the powerful next chapter. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in December, exactly 1 year after Derek had pushed her in that restaurant. Isabella's phone rang with an unknown number. Alexander stirred beside her as she answered groggily. "Hello? Is this Isabella Kane?" A woman's voice, young and frightened. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Olivia. I'm sorry to call so late, but I didn't know who else to contact. I'm at the Phoenix Foundation in Chicago, and something terrible has happened." Isabella's blood ran cold. This was her worst nightmare. An abuser tracking a woman to their supposedly safe haven. "Where's security now?" "They've called the police, but my he's connected. His father is a judge. I'm terrified they won't do anything, and he'll find a way to get to me." "Put me on speaker. I want to talk to your director." A moment later, a stressed male voice came through. "Mrs. Kane, this is James Rodriguez, Chicago director. The situation is under control. Police are en route." "I'm on my way," Isabella interrupted. "I'll be there in 2 hours. In the meantime, I want every woman in that building moved to the secure wing. I want additional private security called immediately. There's an emergency contact list in your director's manual. Use Kane Security Services. Tell them to bill me directly. And I want updates every 15 minutes. "Yes, ma'am." She hung up and was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. "I'm coming with you," Alexander said, already dressing. "You don't have to. She said her ex's father is a judge. You're going to need someone who knows how to apply pressure in the right places. We're going together." They were in Alexander's private jet within an hour, flying through the pre-dawn darkness towards Chicago. Isabella spent the flight on the phone, coordinating with James, speaking to Olivia to keep her calm, and contacting her legal team to prepare for whatever might come next. "This is why the franchising scared me," she admitted to Alexander as they began their descent. "I can't control situations in other cities. I can't protect everyone."
"You can't protect everyone even in New York," he said gently. "But you can build systems that help, and when those systems fail, you show up, like you're doing now." They landed at 6 a.m. and went straight to the Chicago Foundation. Police were still outside, along with private security Alexander had arranged. The ex-husband had been arrested, but was already being processed for release, his father's influence at work. Isabella walked into the building to find 30 frightened women, exhausted staff, and Olivia, a slight young woman with bruises on her arms and terror in her eyes. "You came," Olivia whispered. "You actually came." "Of course I came. You're under our protection now, and that means something." Over the next 6 hours, Isabella worked with her legal team, local authorities, and Alexander's connections to secure a comprehensive restraining order with teeth, surveillance requirements, GPS monitoring for the ex-husband, and consequences that even a judge's influence couldn't erase. She met with every woman in the building, reassuring them the foundation was still safe. She reviewed security protocols with James, identifying weaknesses and implementing improvements. She held an emergency video conference with all Phoenix Foundation directors across the country, using this crisis as a teaching moment. By early evening, the situation was resolved. Olivia was safe. The ex-husband was in jail with bail set high enough that even his father's money couldn't immediately free him. The foundation had new security measures in place. But Isabella was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. "Come on," Alexander said gently. "We're staying at the Peninsula tonight. You need rest." In their hotel suite, she finally allowed herself to break down. The fear, the responsibility, the weight of knowing that women's lives literally depended on the systems she'd built, it all crashed over her. "What if I can't do this?" she asked, tears streaming. "What if I'm not strong enough, smart enough, prepared enough? What if someone gets hurt because I failed?" Alexander pulled her into his arms, holding her as she sobbed. "You showed up at 3 a.m. You flew across the country. You fought through bureaucracy and intimidation. You looked a terrified woman in the eye and promised her safety, then made it happen. That's not failure, Isabella. That's heroism." "It doesn't feel heroic. It feels terrifying." "Because you care. Because these women aren't statistics to you. They're real people whose lives matter. That empathy is your strength, not your weakness." He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. "You can't save everyone. You can't prevent every crisis, but you can build something that helps more women than would have been helped without you. And when things go wrong, you show up and fight. That's all anyone can do." She cried until she had no tears left, then fell asleep in his arms, emotionally spent, but somehow lighter. The next morning, before they flew back to New York, Isabella visited the foundation one more time. Olivia was in the common room, helping make breakfast for other residents. "How are you?" Isabella asked. "Better? Scared still, but better." Olivia smiled tentatively. "Thank you for coming, for fighting for me, for making me believe I'm worth fighting for." "You are worth fighting for. Never doubt that." "Can I ask you something?" Olivia's voice dropped. "Does it ever stop hurting? Does the fear ever go away completely?" "I thought about Derek, about seeing him in that restaurant, about the years of rebuilding." "The hurt becomes manageable," she said honestly. "The fear becomes something you can live with instead of something that controls you. And eventually, you realize you're not defined by what was done to you. You're defined by how you chose to respond." She took Olivia's hand. "You're going to be okay. It won't be easy and it won't be fast, but you're going to rebuild. And one day, you'll look back at this moment and barely recognize the scared woman you were. That's my promise to you." Olivia hugged her tightly. "Thank you." Flying back to New York, Isabella felt something shift inside her. The crisis had been terrifying, but she'd handled it. She'd shown up, she'd fought, she'd made a difference. Maybe she was strong enough for this after all. The Chicago crisis tested Isabella like never before, but she proved she has what it takes to lead a national movement.
Now, as the one-year anniversary of Derek pushing her at Lumiere approaches, an unexpected opportunity will bring her full circle. The emotional climax is coming. The one-year anniversary of Derek pushing her at Lumiere fell on a Saturday in mid-December. Isabella woke that morning with complicated emotions: gratitude for how far she'd come, residual pain from what she'd endured, in a profound sense of transformation. "How do you want to spend today?" Alexander asked over breakfast, watching her carefully. She'd been thinking about this for weeks. "I want to go back to Lumiere." His eyebrows rose. "The restaurant?" "I need to face it, where it happened. I need to stand in that space as who I am now, not who I was then. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." He took her hand. "I'll make a reservation." They arrived at Lumiere that evening, dressed elegantly. The restaurant manager recognized them immediately. The incident had been infamous after all. "Mrs. Kane, Mr. Kane," he approached nervously. "It's an honor to have you. Your table is ready." As they walked through the dining room, Isabella's eyes found the spot where she'd fallen. The display had been replaced, the floor immaculate, no evidence remaining of that terrible day. But she remembered the champagne soaking her dress, the pain in her wrist, the humiliation, the fear. And she remembered what had followed: Alexander's fury, Derek's destruction, and her own rebirth. "Are you okay?" Alexander asked as they sat. "I am, actually, genuinely okay." She looked around the restaurant. "A year ago, I was on that floor thinking my past had caught up to destroy me. Now I'm here as someone completely different, someone stronger, someone who changed the world," he added. Dinner was excellent. They talked about the Foundation's expansion plans, about the upcoming second annual gala, about their lives together. Normal conversation, beautiful and mundane and perfect. After dessert, Alexander pulled out a small box. "This isn't a special occasion," Isabella protested. "Every day with you is a special occasion." He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold bracelet with a single charm, a phoenix rising from flames. "For the woman who taught me what real strength looks like. For my wife, my partner, my phoenix." Tears filled her eyes. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful, inside and out, and I'm so damn proud of who you've become." As they left the restaurant, hand in hand, Isabella paused at the entrance. She looked back at the dining room, at the space where her old life had effectively ended and her new one had begun. "Thank you," she whispered, to the universe, to fate, to whatever force had brought her through darkness into light. The next morning, a Sunday, Isabella received an unexpected email. This one wasn't from Derek, it was from Christina, his ex-fiancée. "Dear Isabella, I've been wanting to reach out for a year now, but I wasn't sure if you'd want to hear from me. I'm writing because I owe you an apology and my gratitude. When Derek and I were together, he told me terrible things about you, that you were unstable, vindictive, a gold digger. I believed him. I'm ashamed to admit I judged you without knowing your story. When the truth came out, I was devastated, not just because Derek had lied to me, but because I'd been complicit in dismissing a survivor's pain. I'd stood next to him in that restaurant while he was cruel to you, and I said nothing. Watching what you've built with the Phoenix Foundation has been inspiring and humbling. You took your trauma and created something that's changing lives. That's powerful. I wanted you to know that seeing your strength helped me recognize patterns in my own life, ways I'd accepted less than I deserved, ways I'd made myself small for men who didn't value me. I'm in therapy now, working on myself, rebuilding my own sense of worth. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. With respect and admiration, Christina." Isabella read the email twice, then showed it to Alexander. "Are you going to respond?" he asked. She thought about it.
A year ago, she might have been angry at Christina's complicity. 6 months ago, she might have felt vindication at her apology. Now she just felt compassion for another woman figuring out her own worth, walking her own healing journey. She typed a simple response. Christina, thank you for reaching out. You don't owe me an apology. Derek lied to both of us, and you're not responsible for his choices. I'm glad you're doing the work of healing and rebuilding. That's all any of us can do. Recognize when we've accepted less than we deserved and choose differently moving forward. You're stronger than you know. Trust your journey. Isabella. She hit send and closed her laptop with a sense of peace. You're remarkable, Alexander said, reading over her shoulder. Most people would want revenge, or at least acknowledgement of wrongdoing. I spent too long letting anger poison me. I'm done with that. Christina's on her own path now, just like Derek is. I hope they both find healing, but their journeys aren't my responsibility. She curled up next to him on their couch, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything. Now I have more than I ever dreamed possible. You, purpose, women whose lives are being transformed. How did I get so lucky? Not luck. You fought for this. You chose to rise instead of stay down. You chose to help others instead of staying bitter. Every good thing in your life now, you earned it. She leaned into him as they walked down the street, Christmas lights twinkling around them, snow beginning to fall. From broken to whole, from victim to victor, from ashes to flight. She was Isabella Kane, survivor, advocate, phoenix. And her story was just beginning. One more chapter remains. Isabella's journey comes to a powerful conclusion as she faces her ultimate test and discovers the final truth about strength, healing, and the power of transformation. Don't miss the emotional finale.
2 years after Derek pushed her in that restaurant, Isabella stood on the stage at the United Nations building in Manhattan, preparing to give the keynote address at the International Summit on Economic Abuse and Survivor Support. The Phoenix Foundation now operated in 23 cities across the United States. They'd helped over 2,000 women rebuild their lives. The model had been adopted internationally, with chapters opening in London, Toronto, and Sydney. But standing here, looking out at representatives from 60 countries, Isabella felt the same nervousness she'd felt at that first small speech 2 years ago. Alexander sat in the front row, exactly where he'd been at every major moment, steady, supportive, proud. 2 years ago, Isabella began. I was invisible. I was a statistic. I was one of millions of women who'd been financially abused, abandoned, and left to rebuild from nothing. The systems that existed told me to be grateful for whatever scraps of help I could find. They told me my trauma was a personal problem, not a societal issue. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the room. But I refused to stay invisible. I refused to accept that my suffering was inevitable. And when I finally found my footing, when I finally had resources, I refused to pretend the problem didn't exist just because I'd personally escaped it. Her voice strengthened with conviction. Economic abuse is domestic violence. When someone deliberately sabotages your financial independence, steals your money, destroys your credit, or leaves you destitute, that's not just cruel, it's criminal. And it creates a trap that keeps survivors locked in dangerous situations because they literally cannot afford to leave. She clicked to the first slide, statistics on economic abuse, divorce rates, poverty levels among single mothers. Traditional support systems focus on emergency intervention, shelters, hotlines, temporary assistance. These are vital and necessary, but they're not enough. Because leaving an abuser is just the first step. Rebuilding a life requires sustained support, resources, dignity, and belief that you're worth investing in. Another slide, photos of Phoenix Foundation residents, before and after.
The transformations were visible, not just in their circumstances, but in their eyes, their posture, their smiles. The Phoenix Foundation model addresses the full spectrum of recovery: housing, legal support, financial counseling, job training, mental health services, childcare, and perhaps most importantly, community, a space where survivors aren't judged, aren't pitied, but respected and empowered. She shared data on their success rates, employment statistics, housing stability, program completion rates, recidivism prevention. But numbers don't capture the real impact. They don't show you Rachel, who arrived with $12 and now owns her own medical billing company. They don't show you Jennifer, who went from homeless to executive chef. They don't show you Maria, who's now in law school studying family law so she can help other survivors. Her voice caught with emotion. They don't show you the moment when a woman who thought she was worthless realizes she has value, when someone who thought she'd never smile again finds joy, when a survivor becomes an advocate and the cycle of trauma transforms into a cycle of healing. She looked directly at the audience. This work is scalable, it's replicable, and it's essential. Economic abuse doesn't respect borders or cultures. It exists everywhere, which means our response must be global, comprehensive, and unwavering. She outlined her vision: an international network of Phoenix Foundation chapters, standardized protocols, shared resources, coordinated advocacy. I'm not naive. I know this is ambitious. I know resources are limited, political will is inconsistent, and systemic change is slow. But I also know that 2 years ago, I was sleeping in my car wondering if I mattered. Today, I'm standing at the United Nations proposing a global initiative. If that transformation is possible for me, it's possible for anyone. The applause was thunderous, not polite diplomatic clapping, but genuine, sustained recognition. After her speech, Isabella was surrounded by representatives from governments, NGOs, and international organizations, all wanting to partner, to learn, to replicate the Phoenix model in their countries. Alexander appeared at her side, running interference when the crowd became overwhelming. "You were brilliant," he murmured during a brief moment alone. "I was terrified." "You were brilliant and terrified. Both can be true." He kissed her temple. "Come on, there's someone who wants to meet you." He led her to a corner where an elegant older woman waited, late 60s, with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. "Isabella Kane. This is Ambassador Catherine Williams. She runs the UN's initiative on women's economic empowerment." "Mrs. Kane," the ambassador shook her hand firmly. "That was the most powerful speech I've heard in 20 years at the UN. Your work with the Phoenix Foundation is remarkable. I'd like to discuss a partnership, bringing your model to developing nations where economic abuse is even more prevalent, but resources are scarce." They talked for an hour about possibilities, logistics, funding sources. By the end, they'd outlined a pilot program for Kenya, India, and Brazil. This could help millions of women, literally millions. As they left the UN building that evening, Isabella was dazed. Did that really just happen? Did I just commit to international expansion? Alexander laughed. "You did, and you'll be brilliant at it, just like everything else." They walked through the winter evening, Manhattan's lights reflecting off fresh snow, their breath forming clouds in the cold air. "Can I tell you something? Anything. 2 years ago, when Derek pushed me in that restaurant, I was so focused on the humiliation, the pain, the reopening of old wounds. I never imagined it would lead to this, that his worst moments would become my catalyst for purpose." She stopped walking, turning to face Alexander. "If he hadn't pushed me, if you hadn't witnessed it, if we hadn't gone through that whole terrible day, I might never have confronted my past, might never have realized I had a story worth sharing, a mission worth pursuing. Does that make sense?" Perfect sense. Trauma can be transformative, not because the trauma itself is good, but because how we respond to it reveals who we really are. "I'm grateful," she said softly, for the strength I found, the love I received, the purpose I discovered, and the countless women whose lives will be transformed by my refusal to let trauma define me. I'm Isabella Kane. I'm a phoenix, and my wings are just beginning to spread. The end. Thank you so much for reading Isabella and Alexander's story. If this journey moved you, please remember that survivors of economic abuse need support, resources, and most importantly, the message that they matter and can rebuild. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial abuse, please reach out to local domestic violence resources. You are not alone. You are not broken. And like Isabella, you can rise. Leave a comment telling me what resonated most with you in this story. What would you like to see next? More billionaire romance? Different tropes? Let me know.